Thank you for joining me on my masterclass. Now, today, this lovely winter day, you see the snow all around us. It's a very inspirational day. I'm going to be teaching on a step by step guide to developing your competency, your core competency, like a step by step guide to developing your core competency. Now, a lot of people they have a general idea of what a core competency is. Like, oh, it's a skill that you know how to do. But you see, in life, we got skills. I mean, we've got a number of skills. You have a skill, maybe you're dressing up, that's a skill. If you know how to sing, that's a skill. If you know how to cook, it's a skill. So, I mean, a variety of things. Riding a motorcycle is a skill, driving is a skill. But then, not all skills are core competencies. So, what do I mean by that? You see, if you take a skill, for instance, like maybe wearing your clothes, almost everybody, almost all the 7.9 billion people on earth can wear their clothes. Almost everybody. So it can be a core competency. It can be a core competency at all. But then if you go further and maybe you know how to sew clothes, how to cut, and then how to sew clothes together. Now that can be a core competency because you have significantly narrowed down the base of people who can do that skill. So maybe we have 7.9 billion people on earth, about 7.8 billion people know how to dress themselves, know how to wear their clothes. But then maybe only about 500 million people know how to make their own clothes. So it's possible that that can be a core competency, but it's not automatically a core competency. Now, if among those 700 or 500 million people who know how to make their clothes, you are exceptionally good, now that's a core competency. So you've got several skills. People have got several skills. If you're watching this, you've got a number of skills. But then you have maybe one or two skills that you can do better than most people. And as you're growing up, you observed it, your birth gifts. And then you see that, okay, there's something that you can do better than most people. I'll give you a very good example. Growing up, I just, had a flair for memory. I could remember things. Things in politics especially, I could remember things. So I remember my father, he would come to me and say, oh, yeah, you know what, who is the president of this country? And 7 years old, I would tell him, and then I was growing up, and then he would ask me, like, oh, what's the capital of this country? 10 years old, I would tell him because I just had a flair for that. And then later on, I turned that into communication skills. And then I was able to communicate because I had memory, and then I had like a wide vocabulary, and then it became a core competency. And then by the time it became a core competency, I started to write books, I started to speak for people, and then I started to get paid for doing that. So a core competency is a skill that you do exceptionally well, and then people are willing to pay you to do that skill. So that's a core competency. So how do you identify your core competency? You see, everybody has birth gifts. Everybody on earth has birth gifts. So you have to look at it. You've got birth gifts, let's say on this hand, and then in this whole world, people have needs. People have needs. Now that's on this other hand. So you've got a skill, you've got your birth gifts here, and then you've got the needs of the world here. Now, a lot of the people's needs, a lot of their needs, they can meet by themselves. A lot of their needs, they can meet by themselves. But then people have needs that they cannot meet by themselves. So they've got to go out of themselves to meet those needs. Now, where your birth gifts meet those needs that people need, but they can't do by themselves, that's where you develop your core competency. So you've got your birth gifts here, you've got needs that people have. And then where your birth gifts meet those needs that people have, but they can't meet by themselves, those are your core competencies. And then if you want to be successful in life, you want to spend your time developing those core competencies, because that's where your birth gifts meet the needs of the world, and that's where the sweet spots that you're going to have, where people are going to pay you money. So I'll give you another example. So for instance, maybe you're just a naturally funny person. You make people laugh, you make people smile. You got to remember that this is a very stressful world. And then people would want something that will make them not think about stress, not be stressed. you know, and you've got that skill. Now, if you just, okay, that skill, you just leave it there, you know, consider it like maybe a hobby, then you're not going to develop it to your core competency. But if you can grow it to a skill whereby it is so easy for you at the drop of a hat to make people laugh, to make people smile, to make people happy, then it becomes a core competency. You become a comic, you become a comedian, you become a skit maker. So you see what I'm talking about? For you to become wealthy, you've got to find your core competency. And then, you know, in being a life coach, in talking to people, I've seen people who come up to me and say, oh no, I don't have any core competency. No, you do have a potential for a core competency, but you've either not discovered it or you've not developed it yet. So I'll give you an example. As a communicator, you're not just going to be a communicator in a way where people can pay you immediately. You know, there's something you read in scripture. I think it's in Hebrews 5:14. It says, strong meat belongs to those who are of age, even to those who by reason of use have their senses exercised. So you have to develop those skills that are your core competency, and then they become something that people pay you for. If you don't develop them, they're just going to lay fallow. They're just going to lie fallow. It's like a muscle. If you don't use a muscle regularly, that muscle, you're going to lose it. It's just going to atrophy. So a lot of people, they're going to jobs, working a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4 job because they haven't developed their core competency. And here's the thing, you don't need to go to school to develop your core competency. Yes, there's some people like doctors, lawyers, architects who need to go to school. You need to go to school. But by and large, the vast majority of people can develop their core competencies without going to school. A lot of it is through just regular use, practice. And then some of it might be through self-education, reading books, learning from a mentor, from people who are better than you. But this idea that you need to go to school and then get a job and stay at that job for 35 years and retire and enjoy maybe 5 to 10 years of your life, that is not the way to wealth in this knowledge worker era. So I hope that I've made sense to you. I hope that I've communicated to you. However, if after all I've said you still don't understand the points I'm trying to make, what you can do, ask questions. Put your questions in the comment section of this video, and then my staff are going to bring them to me and I'll do my best to respond to them. But you got to remember, I do not have a WhatsApp forum, a Telegram channel, or a Gmail email address. Scammers see that my videos tend to get viral, and so they've created a number of fake YouTube profiles with my image on it, and they approach people in the comment section telling you helpline, guideline, one-on-one mentoring, and then if you contact them, they're going to ask you to pay for money, and that's the last you hear from them. Everything I do for free. Now, this is Reno Mokri, the Apostle of Prosperity, and because there's so much snow here, the last thing I'm going to do is going to make a snowball, whoops, and throw it at my wife. Woo!
But Reno travels all around the world. I hope you get inspired about what you see. Apostle of greatness, Reno is a master. Only one man against the whole world in large. Fighting with the monsters, poverty I can't stand. That's why Reno is